The first time I saw her, she was bleeding onto my clean deck. Ambassador Krell had assured me this human exchange program would be, and I quote, an excellent opportunity for cultural enrichment. What he failed to mention was that humans leaked everywhere. Not just blood either, sweat, tears, something they called coffee that smelled like burned soil. Her name was Maya Torres, and she stood exactly 1.6 meters tall, which made her absurdly tiny by Vraxian standards. I towered over her at nearly 3 meters, my exoskeleton gleaming under the station's artificial lights, my 4 arms crossed in what I hoped conveyed professional disapproval. "You're late," I said. She wiped blood from her split lip with the back of her hand. "Yeah. Well, your security officer didn't appreciate my sense of humor. Rexon takes his duties very seriously. Rexon takes himself very seriously." She grinned, revealing those flat, dull teeth humans were so proud of. I told him his face looked like a dried fruit someone stepped on. Apparently, that's offensive in your culture. I felt my mandibles click in irritation. 3 months. I had to supervise this creature for 3 months. "Come," I said, gesturing with my upper right arm. "I will show you to your quarters." She followed me through the corridors of Deep Station 17, her boots making annoying squeaking sounds against the metal floors. The station orbited a gas giant in the Tertius system, serving as a neutral meeting point for 17 different species. As station director, I prided myself on maintaining order, efficiency, and most importantly, peace. This human was already disrupting all 3. "So," she said, jogging slightly to keep up with my stride, "what exactly will I be here?" "Observing. Learning. Trying not to start any interstellar incidents." I paused at a junction, my sensors detecting elevated toxin levels in Corridor B. "Why are you really here, Maya Torres?" She shrugged, a peculiar human gesture involving the shoulders. "My government thinks we need more exposure to alien cultures. Build bridges, make friends." Her grin widened. I think they just wanted to get rid of me for a while. At least she was honest. We arrived at her quarters, a modest space with a sleeping platform, waste facilities, and a viewing port that overlooked the gas giant. She dumped her single bag on the floor and immediately pressed her face against the transparent aluminum. "Oh wow," she breathed. "That's gorgeous." I had seen the view thousands of times. It was merely a large ball of swirling gases and gravitational forces. But watching her face, the way her eyes widened, the genuine wonder in her expression, I felt something shift in my perception. Perhaps humans saw things differently than we did. "Rest," I told her. "Orientation begins at dawn cycle." "You guys have dawn cycles in space. It's an expression, right?" She turned from the window. "Hey, Director Venn, thanks for not throwing me in the brig or whatever you call your jail here." "The cycle is young," I said, and left before she could see my mandibles twitch in what might have been amusement. The next few days proceeded relatively smoothly, if you ignored the 3 formal complaints, 1 small fire, and the incident with the Quellan ambassador's ceremonial headpiece. Maya had thought it was a hat. It was not a hat, but she learned quickly. I had to give her that. She memorized the names of every species on the station, their customs, their dietary restrictions, their preferred greeting rituals. She asked endless questions, some insightful, many ridiculous, all delivered with that same irreverent smile. "Why do the Threll always travel in 3s?" she asked one morning, watching a group pass by. "Religious significance. They believe in a trinity of creation, and the Quellan never touch their shoulder membranes. It's deeply intimate."
"What about you? What shouldn't I do with Raxians?"
I considered the question. "Do not challenge us to combat unless you mean it," she laughed. Noted. No casual death matches. Then came the day that changed everything. I was reviewing supply manifests in my office when the alarms began shrieking. My communication panel lit up with urgent messages. Dock 7. Unauthorized vessel. Weapons detected. I ran. By the time I reached the docking bay, a crowd had already gathered. Security formed a perimeter, but I could see the problem immediately. A Kresh warship had attached itself to our dock without permission or clearance. The Kresh were known troublemakers, a species of aggressive reptilians who respected only strength and had been banned from most neutral stations after repeated violations of trade law. Their captain emerged from the airlock, flanked by 6 heavily armed soldiers. Captain Dax was infamous throughout the sector. A 2.5-meter wall of muscle, scales, and bad intentions. His yellow eyes swept the crowd with contempt. "Station director," he growled, his translator rendering his speech in flat, threatening tones. "We require supplies. Immediately." "This is a neutral station," I said, keeping my voice steady despite my racing circulatory systems. "You have no authorization to dock here. You must leave." Dax laughed, a sound like grinding rocks. "I don't think so." He shoved past me, his shoulder slamming into my thorax hard enough to crack my outer shell. Pain radiated through my body, but I forced myself to stand. Behind me, I heard Rexon and the other security officers raising their weapons. This was bad. One wrong move and we would have a firefight in a pressurized environment. People would die. The station could be compromised. "Stand down," I ordered my team, then turned to Dax. "We can discuss terms." "There are no terms," Dax said. He grabbed a passing station technician, a young Quellan named Rix, and lifted him by his throat. "You will provide supplies or I will start killing your people, beginning with this one." Rix's membrane fluttered in terror. His feet kicked uselessly in the air. My mind calculated options at hyperspeed. Call for help? Reinforcements were hours away. Fight? We were outgunned and any violence risked hull breach. Negotiate? Dax had no interest in negotiation. I had no good options. And then I heard that voice. "Hey, Scales. Put him down." Maya pushed through the crowd, her tiny human frame somehow commanding attention. She stood with her hands on her hips, glaring up at the massive Kresh captain. Dax looked at her the way one might look at an insect. "What is this?" "This is me telling you to let him go," Maya said. Now, the Kresh soldiers found this hilarious. Their laughter echoed through the docking bay. Even Dax seemed amused, his grip on Rix loosening slightly. "Little creature," he said, "I have destroyed ships larger than your entire species. Why would I listen to you?" "Because," Maya said, taking a step closer. "If you don't, I'm going to make you regret it." Now Dax was definitely amused. He dropped Rix, who scrambled away, gasping. The Kresh captain turned his full attention to Maya, looming over her like a mountain over a pebble. "Regret it? You?" He reached out one massive claw toward her face. "I think I will keep you as a pet. You are entertaining." What happened next occurred so quickly that my visual processors nearly missed it. Maya moved. Her hand shot out, grabbed Dax's extended claw, and twisted. The sound of snapping bone echoed through the sudden silence. Before Dax could even register pain, Maya had spun beneath his arm, using his own momentum against him. Her boot struck the back of his knee, a joint I knew was vulnerable on Kresh anatomy. Dax dropped. The crowd gasped collectively. A human, barely half his size, had brought a Kresh warrior to his knees. But Maya was not done. She grabbed the back of Dax's head and slammed his face into the deck plating once, twice, 3 times. His blood, dark green and viscous, splattered across the pristine metal floor. His soldiers started forward, raising their weapons. But Maya was already moving again. She grabbed Dax's service weapon from his belt, a plasma pistol that looked comically large in her small hands, and pressed it against his skull ridge. "Tell them to stand down," she said quietly, "or I paint this deck with whatever passes for your brains." Dax, barely conscious, managed a weak gesture. His soldiers lowered their weapons. Maya looked at me, her expression completely calm. "Director Venn, I believe these individuals need to leave your station." I found my voice. "Indeed. Rexon, escort our guests back to their ship. They are banned from this facility permanently." The security team moved forward, weapons trained on the Kresh soldiers. They dragged Dax to his feet, the captain's yellow eyes burning with hatred as they hauled him toward the airlock. Just before disappearing inside, Dax turned back to Maya. "This is not over, human." "Looking forward to the rematch," Maya called cheerfully. tossing his plasma pistol to one of my security officers. The airlock sealed. Within minutes, the Kresh ship had undocked and departed, their engines flaring as they retreated into the darkness. The crowd erupted in chatter, everyone trying to process what they had witnessed. I approached Maya, who was examining her knuckles with mild interest. "Are you injured?" I asked. "Nah, his face is softer than it looks." She glanced up at me. "Sorry about the mess. And the, unauthorized violence on your station." I should have been angry. I should have filed 17 different incident reports. I should have contacted her superiors and demanded her immediate recall. Instead, I heard myself say, "Where did you learn to fight like that?" She shrugged again. "Marine Corps. Special operations. Turns out humans are pretty good at the whole combat thing when we need to be." Her expression grew serious. "He was going to hurt people, Director Venn. Your people." I couldn't just stand there. I looked at this small, impossible creature, standing in a pool of alien blood, having just taken down a warrior 3 times her size without hesitation or fear. "You saved lives today," I said quietly. "Including mine. That's what friends do, right?" She grinned. "Build bridges. Make friends. Try not to start interstellar incidents." She paused. "Okay, maybe I failed on that last one." Behind us, Rix approached, his membrane still trembling slightly. "Thank you," he whispered to Maya. "You saved my life." She patted his arm gently. "Any time, buddy." As the crowd dispersed and my security team began cleaning up, I realized something profound. I had spent decades studying alien species, learning their cultures, understanding their biology, but I had fundamentally misunderstood humans. They were not weak because they were small. They were not helpless because they lacked natural weapons or armor. They were not inferior because they came from a single, relatively unremarkable planet. They were survivors. Fighters. Protectors who would stand between danger and those they cared about, regardless of the cost. And Maya Torres, with her terrible jokes and bleeding knuckles and absolute refusal to back down, embodied everything that made her species simultaneously terrifying and extraordinary. "Come," I said. "We both need medical attention, and I need to teach you the proper way to file assault paperwork." She laughed, falling into step beside me. "There's paperwork? Nobody told me there would be paperwork." "Welcome to bureaucracy," I said. "It is the true final frontier." And as we walked through the corridors of Deep Station 17, her blood mingling with mine on the deck us, I found myself grateful for whatever cosmic accident had brought humans into the wider galaxy, even if they did leak everywhere. 2 weeks after the incident, I was still finding Kresh blood in Ventilation Shaft 7. Maya had become something of a celebrity on the station. Everywhere she went, people stopped to thank her, to shake her hand, to ask for demonstrations of human combat techniques. The Quellan delegation presented her with an honorary peace medal. The Thrall Trinity invited her to their sacred meal rituals. Even Vrexen, who still bore a slight grudge about the dried fruit comment, admitted she had acceptable warrior instincts. I found her in the observation lounge, staring out at the stars. "Hiding?" I asked. She turned, and I saw exhaustion in her eyes. "Is it that obvious? You have been avoiding the central corridors for 3 days." I settled into one of the reinforced chairs designed for larger species. "The attention is overwhelming." "Yeah." She slumped into the seat beside me. "Don't get me wrong. Everyone's been great. But I'm not a hero, Director Venn. I just did what needed doing." "That is precisely what makes you a hero," I said. "Heroes rarely recognize themselves as such." She snorted. "Philosophy now? What happened to the grumpy station director who wanted to throw me in the brig?" He encountered new data and adjusted his conclusions accordingly. I gestured toward the viewport. "You changed my perspective on many things." "Like what?" "Like the nature of strength. I assumed physical size, determined capability in combat scenarios. You demonstrated that assumption was incorrect." "Humans figured that out a long time ago," Maya said. "Back on Earth we've got this saying, it's not the size of the dog in the fight, it's the size of the fight in the dog. Your species compares itself to canines. We compare ourselves to everything. Rocks, hard places, Cats with 9 lives. Bulls in china shops. She grinned. We're a metaphor-obsessed people. Before I could respond, the station alarms shrieked again. My communication panel exploded with messages, all screaming the same thing. Kresh battle fleet detected. Multiple vessels. Inbound. Maya and I ran to the command center, arriving just as the tactical display lit up with hostile contacts. 12 ships, all Kresh military design, all bearing weapons signatures that made my circulatory systems freeze. They came back, Vrexen said unnecessarily. Not just came back, I corrected, studying the formation. They brought reinforcements. The communication channel crackled to life. Dax's face appeared on the screen, his snout still bearing scar from his encounter with Maya. Behind him, I could see a much larger Kresh, covered in ceremonial battle armor. Station Director Venn, Dax growled. I promised this was not over. The larger Kresh shoved Dax aside. I am War Chief Krax of the Kresh Dominion. You harbor an enemy combatant who assaulted one of my officers. Surrender the human called Maya Torres, or we will take her by force. Maya stepped forward. I'm right here, ugly. Come and get me, Maya. No. I hissed. She ignored me. Tell you what, Krax. How about we settle this like warriors? Me and Dax, one-on-one. He wins, you take me. I win, you leave this station alone. Forever. Krax's eyes gleamed with interest. You would face Captain Dax in single combat. Already did once. Went pretty well for me. This time, Krax said slowly, the combat will be to the death. By our laws and customs, no interference. Do you accept these terms, Maya? This is insane, I said. You cannot. I accept, she said. The channel went silent for a moment. Then Krax laughed, a sound like avalanches. Excellent. We will dock at Bay 7. 1 hour. Prepare your funeral rites, human. The screen went dark. I rounded on Maya. Have you lost your cognitive functions? He will kill you. Maybe, she said calmly. Or maybe I'll kill him first. This is not a joke. Kresh warriors train from birth for combat. Dax has killed hundreds in ritual duels. You got lucky once, but it wasn't luck, Director. Her voice was quiet but firm. And this is the only way. You saw that fleet. They'll tear this station apart looking for me. At least this way. I'm the only one who gets hurt. I cannot allow this. It's not your choice. She met my eyes. Sometimes you have to fight. Sometimes you have to risk everything for the people you care about. You taught me that. Actually, I taught you no such thing. Sure you did. When you stood up to Dax the first time, knowing you couldn't win, knowing he'd probably kill you. But you did it anyway because it was your station, your people. She smiled sadly. I'm just following your example. I had no response to that. The next hour passed in a blur of activity. The Kresh fleet docked, their ships forming a menacing wall around the station. Krax and his warriors assembled in our largest cargo bay, transforming it into an arena. Word spread throughout the station, and despite my orders to remain in quarters, every species gathered to witness the fight. Maya stood in the center of the arena, wearing simple combat clothes. She had refused armor, refused weapons beyond her bare hands. The crowd murmured nervously. Dax entered from the opposite side, and my heart sank. He looked twice as large as before, muscles enhanced by combat stimulants. His claws had been sharpened to razor points. Ceremonial scars covered his chest, each one representing a kill in ritual combat. Krax stepped forward. The challenge has been issued and accepted. Combat will continue until one fighter cannot continue, or until death occurs. There will be no interference, no mercy, no surrender. Do both fighters understand? Yes, Maya said. Dax roared his agreement. Then begin. Dax charged immediately, moving with terrifying speed for something so large. Maya dodged left, but his backhand caught her across the ribs. I heard bones crack. She flew backwards, slamming into the cargo containers we had stacked as arena walls. The crowd gasped. Several species looked away. Maya struggled to her feet, one hand pressed against her side. Blood leaked between her fingers. She was smiling. "That all you got?" she called. Dax charged again. This time Maya was ready. She dropped low, rolled beneath his grasp, and drove her fist into his kidney. The impact would have felled a lesser creature. Dax merely grunted and spun, his tail whipping around to catch Maya's legs. She jumped, barely clearing the sweep, and landed on his tail. Before he could react, she ran up his spine and locked her arm around his throat. Dax roared, reaching back to grab her. His claws raked across her shoulder, tearing flesh. Maya screamed, but held on, squeezing with everything she had. For a moment, I thought she might actually win. Dax's movements grew sluggish. His roars turned to gasps. Then he threw himself backward, crushing Maya between his massive body and the metal floor. She lost her grip. Dax rolled, faster than physics should allow, and tinned her beneath him. His claws closed around her throat. "Die, human," he snarled. Maya's face turned purple. Her legs kicked uselessly. The crowd stood in horrified silence. This was it. I had watched this tiny, impossible creature change my entire worldview, and now I would watch her die. But then I saw her hand moving. Slowly, deliberately, reaching for something on Dax's belt. A small blade, ceremonial but sharp, used by Kresh warriors for ritual scarring. Her fingers closed around it. In one fluid motion, she drove the blade up through the soft spot beneath Dax's jaw, angling it toward his brain. Dax's eyes went wide. His grip on her throat loosened. Maya twisted the blade. Dax collapsed, his massive body pinning her to the floor. For a terrible moment, nothing moved. Then I saw her hand emerge from beneath him, still holding the bloody knife. "Little help here?" her voice called, muffled. "He's really heavy." The crowd erupted. Rexin and several security officers rushed forward, hauling Dax's corpse off her. Maya stood, swaying slightly, covered in blood both green and red. She looked at Kresh, who stood frozen in shock. "I believe," she said, her voice rough from near strangulation. "We had an agreement. I win, you leave. Forever." Kresh stared at the body of his captain. Then, slowly, he began to laugh. "You honor us with your strength, human. The Kresh respect warriors above all else, and you have proven yourself a true fighter." He bowed, a gesture of deep respect in Kresh culture. "We will honor our agreement, and perhaps, in time, we might call humans friends rather than enemies." Maya nodded, then promptly collapsed. The next 3 days passed in the medical bay. Maya's injuries were extensive but not life-threatening. Broken ribs, torn muscles, severe bruising, and a partially crushed trachea. Dr. Rill, our Threll physician, marveled at her recovery rate. "Humans heal remarkably fast," he observed, "and her pain tolerance is extraordinary." I sat beside her bed, reviewing reports on a datapad. She had been unconscious for most of the first day, but now her eyes flickered open. "Hey," she croaked. "Hey yourself," I said, setting down the pad. "How do you feel?" "Like I fought a dinosaur and won." She tried to sit up, winced, and settled back down. "Did it work? Are they gone?" "Yes." Kresh and his fleet departed 12 hours ago. He also sent a formal treaty proposal to the Galactic Council, opening diplomatic relations with human territories. I allowed myself a small smile. "You may have accidentally ended a conflict that has lasted decades." "Accidentally," she repeated. "That's me. Professional accident maker. You nearly died." "But I didn't." She met my eyes. "And everyone else is safe. That's what matters." "You are infuriating," I said. "I've been told." We sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Maya spoke again, her voice softer. "Can I tell you something, Director Venn? The real reason I volunteered for this program? Please. I was tired of being scared all the time. On Earth, I saw combat. Bad stuff, things that give me nightmares. And when I came home, I couldn't handle normal life anymore. Everything felt fake, you know, like I was just going through the motions." She stared at the ceiling. "I thought maybe out here with aliens and weird customs and giant lizard warriors, I'd feel something real again." "Did you?" She laughed, then grimaced at the pain. "Yeah. Terror mostly, but also purpose. Connection. Friendship, maybe. With a grumpy insect boss who secretly has a good heart. I am not an insect. Vraxians are arachnoid-descended arthropods, which is completely different. You're proving my point about the grumpy part. I clicked my mandibles in amusement. When you are recovered, we have much work to do. The Kresh Treaty requires negotiation. Several species have expressed interest in human combat training programs, and someone needs to clean Kresh blood from ventilation shaft 7. That last one sounds like a you problem. It is most definitely a you problem. She grinned, then her expression grew serious. Thank you, Director Venn, for believing in me, for giving me a chance even when I was nothing but trouble. You are still nothing but trouble, I pointed out. But you are also brave, resourceful, and willing to sacrifice yourself for others. These are qualities I have come to value highly. Was that a compliment? From you? Do not let it go to your head. 2 months later, Maya's term at the station officially ended. A human transport arrived to take her home, accompanied her to the docking bay, where a crowd had gathered to see her off. Rix presented her with a Quellan friendship bracelet. The Threll Trinity sang her a blessing. Rexon actually smiled, though it looked painful for him. At the airlock, Maya turned to me. This has been the best 3 months of my life, she said. Thank you for putting up with me. The pleasure was mine, I said, and meant it. She started to board, then stopped. Hey, if you ever need someone to fight more giant lizards, or start more interstellar incidents, or bleed on your clean floors, you know where to find me. I will keep that in mind, she saluted, human military style, then disappeared into the transport. The airlock sealed. The ship undocked and vanished into the stars. I stood there long after she left, staring at the empty docking port. Rexon approached. She was something special, wasn't she? Yes, I agreed. She was. 3 weeks later, I received a communication from Maya. It contained a single image, her grinning at the camera, holding up a bottle of something labeled tequila, with a message that read, "Miss you, Bug Boss. Try not to let any more lizards trash your station. Your friend, Maya." I saved the image to my personal files. Humans, I had learned, were small and fragile and leaked everywhere. They told terrible jokes, broke rules, and caused endless paperwork. They were also loyal, brave, and utterly terrifying when protecting those they cared about. The galaxy would never be the same now that we had met them, and I, for one, was grateful for it. Even if I was still finding blood in ventilation shaft 7.